just find a bit of inner zen and have a nice time would be to film a video about some of the books that I've read recently. And I know we love a book video on this channel, so it felt kind of perfect. I've read quite a few different kinds of books over the last sort of month and a half-ish. So I've picked out a few. Some are graphic novels, some are novels. There's a variety, but all bring something to the table, so I hope that you enjoy it. The tea of choice today is a lovely, calming chamomile. It's a very full-bodied chamomile, this one. And what I really love about this as well, silly I know, is that the packets are pink. And I just think the lilac and the pink goes so cute with the yellow and grey box. I really like it, so I must remember to drink it. But anyway, first book I want to talk about is this one. So this is Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and it's by DJ Clune. DJ Clune. I absolutely adore DJ Clune. His writing style is just so unique to me, and the stories are just so magical, but always have a lovely hidden message. And the first book in this series, this is the second one, and it was out fairly recently as well. I think it was end of last year, maybe September time, but I've just got around to reading it. The first one is House in the Cerulean Sea, and that is honestly one of my favourite books of all time. So I had quite high expectations going into this one, and where I did enjoy it, and it had a lot of the whimsy, a lot of the dark humour, the same wonderful characters. I kind of wasn't as blown away by the storyline as I hoped to be. It's all about a group of children who live on an island, and they are magical. And there is a department in charge of magical youth, which is shortened to DICOMY, which is kind of assessing the orphanage and trying to decide if these children are too dangerous to be living such free, nice lives with their guardian, carer, Arthur Parnassus. And the first book is all about a character called Linus, who works for DICOMY and comes to the island to assess Arthur and the children. And it's just so heartwarming to see the transitions in him and how the story unfolds, but I don't know, this one just, I found the story just not as impactful as it could have been, and I think I would have just really loved this book to have been more about Arthur's backstory, or more about David, who is a character who comes to live with them, another child. It just felt a little bit disjointed and few sort of interesting messages in there, but I don't know, ultimately I think I just went in with too higher expectations and just came away feeling like a little bit disappointed. But don't get me wrong, it was lovely to be back with the characters, and it does have some gorgeous, gorgeous scenes in this book. I definitely wouldn't say don't read it, but don't go in with the same expectations as you do with the first book. I have this lovely sprayed edge copy, and it's also signed by DJ Clune as well. My love for Arthur and Linus does carry on throughout this book. So, next up I read The Wild Robot. The Wild Robot. This has been out at the cinema recently, and I went to see it at the cinema with my friend, and then just really, really wanted to read the book because I loved the film so much. And I actually bought this as a bit of a risk, really, for 3 people for Christmas and also for myself, without having read the book but knowing the story. It's all about Roz. This is Roz the robot. Rosum 7423 or something is the name of her robot build. And she gets washed up on an island after a bit of a disaster at sea. The crate gets open, she gets activated by the creatures, and it's all about her finding her way on the island and how she can adapt to make it her home. And I honestly think for a children's book, which is what this is, it really, really brings up some fantastic moral standings, I suppose, around inclusion, not judging a book by its cover, I suppose, and also just becoming more than what you are programmed to be or what you started out as in order to survive and having to adapt. And it's also got some nice sort of themes running through it around motherhood as well, because Roz has a task to look after a little gosling who she accidentally killed the parents of. That happens very early on in the book, it's not really much of a spoiler. So it's also about how she brings up this little gosling and how she learns to be a mum. But also how no one's perfect. I think the book is a little bit more gruesome and graphic than the film. It's got some scenes in it that are really wow, that's quite harrowing for a child, perhaps. So I actually buddy read this with my mother, and she really enjoyed it as well. I got it for Christmas, and she's bought me these second 2 books. She's found them in the works for £5 each, so she's bought me the next 2 and herself the next 2 as well, so next time I see her I'll pick them up from her. I really would recommend this for wholesomeness, nature, and just some really lovely morals as well. It was great. Murasaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yakisawa. I think I had this on like an autumn TBR or something like that, but I never got around to reading it properly. So I did give it some time recently, because it's one I've been really excited about and just, yeah, wanted to actually spend some time with it. It is quite short, it didn't take me too long to read. But it's about, what's she called? Takako. 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 And obviously it's all set in Japan, and this is a Japanese book and it's been translated into English. So Takako had a boyfriend who she really liked, but then found out that he kind of wasn't everything that he was saying he was, and had a bit of a sort of dark secret. And she, maybe not a dark secret, but does something that really upsets her, and she's forced to move on, but she finds it really difficult. And her sort of quite unusual uncle, who works at the Murasaki Bookshop, which is a family-run bookshop handed down through the generations, he invites her to go and stay. So she does, begrudgingly. And it's kind of all about how she finds herself, adjusts herself and her new life, and finds confidence and meets new people. But I think one of the things that I just really loved about this book is experiencing some of the sort of Japanese culture that comes through from it. And that's not just in terms of, it mentions things like dynasties and also locations. So it's set in, what's the official name? Jimbocho, so Jimbocho in Tokyo. And I had never heard of this, but it's basically a big village town that is just full of old second-hand bookshops. And the Murasaki Bookshop is in Jimbocho. So I just loved every time something came up that I wasn't sure about, I would Google it and I would learn something. And there's lots of sort of things that Takako thinks that feels like quite a sort of cultural reference. And it was just really interesting to be able to pick up on some of that. The characters are really interesting as well. And I think this author sets the scene of the bookshop really well. Like, I felt like I was there. It was like stepping into someone's shoes when reading this book. And it was very sort of slice of life in places, and I love a bit of slice of life. But also it's here to talk about serious stuff too, which I enjoyed. I'd recommend it. This one, let me drink my tea. Otherwise, I'll just forget. This is a graphic novel, and I got this for is the Seance D Party. So I'll show you some of the artwork. It's very colourful, it's very cozy, it's very whimsical, and all of those things really do relate to the story. So we have Laura, who is struggling to sort of grow up with her friends. So her friends have all started to get into like celebrities and makeup and stuff like that, and she's just not really into that. She's really clinging on to her childhood whimsical mindset, I suppose. And I love that that is described as magic in this book. It's like holding on to your magic. I thought that was beautiful. And then she meets Alexa, who is a little ghost, and she is also kind of trapped in childhood. She died at a young age, so they kind of have a lot in common, Laura and Alexa. And they go on like little adventures together and just kind of revel in their sort of whimsical childhood loveliness, I suppose. But then, as Laura starts to grow up a bit, things kind of start to change, and also Alexa makes a few sort of discoveries, I suppose, that kind of makes her wonder if moving on is such a bad thing, and together they kind of just grow, I suppose, as people. I think like this is a kid's book, again, kind of aimed at kids, but it has some themes that everybody can relate to, and I loved that it has representation from both the young and old age groups, and they both bring to the table something that each of those age groups can relate to. And there is a scene in this book that will probably stay with me forever. It's just so beautifully done, and like I felt it so strongly. I can't tell you without giving the story away, but yeah, towards the end there is a scene that's just, yeah, so beautiful. But I love that a strong theme of this book is all about, you know, holding on to your childhood magic and that being okay. And even, you know, adults don't have everything worked out, and that's also okay. But also that change is not always a bad thing either. It's got a very like forgiving nature to it, I suppose. Really calming. of short stories, and there's quite a few stories in here of varying lengths really, some just a few pages long. But they're all about, there's a variety of themes in there, but they are essentially sort of about the human condition, I suppose, and the different situations that people can find themselves in and how they react to it. And I think a big theme that kind of runs through this is escape. Wanting to escape from your situation, your life, people around you. And there's a big kind of, well, for me there was a big sort of theme of things aren't always black and white. People's reactions to things aren't always necessarily right or wrong, and it really is quite thought-provoking in a lot of ways, this book. But Claire Keegan's writing is so sharp and to the point, but beautiful at the same time, and completely draws you in. I could not have started one of these stories and not finished it. It was so gripping. I do think some were better than others, so I actually haven't read all of them, but I've read, well, I think Antarctica was my favourite. That was really interesting, and I also think that Claire Keegan's writing came through the strongest for me in that one. It had some elements that were so sensory, the things that the woman was noticing. It really brought you into the story and the situation and made it so tense. And it's the one that has stuck with me of still not quite knowing how I feel about it. I still don't quite know who's right and who's wrong, and I don't think there is actually maybe a right answer. Or at least it's not as black and white as it would initially appear to be. I don't know. But also Sisters was really good. That was very much about how two different people can live very different lives, and then how they kind of come together and learn from each other, I guess, or clash. Men and Women, I really enjoyed that one as well. It was kind of infuriating and in some ways quite relatable, but it was meant to be those things. It was simple but effective. But then there was a few more that I've read, especially, what was it called? Where the Water's Deepest. I'm still not entirely too sure I fully grasped what was going on in that one. But that kind of might have been the point, that it was kind of ambiguous. In school, I read, as part of my English literature course, a book called, I think it's called Shortcuts by Raymond Carver. And when I read this book, or started reading this book, I messaged a friend who was in that class, who I'm still friends with. And I know she reads a lot, and she was really into the class. And I said to her, can you remember the author of that book we read that was all about your everyday, but kind of being miserable and going about it, and it was and trying to sort of escape it and doing really shocking things, but written in such a sort of simple but effective way. I can't remember exactly what I said, but she got it straight away, and said, oh, it was Raymond Carver, and I remembered the name as soon as she'd said it. And Claire Keegan's writing really, really reminds me of that, and I thought I'd had a really, really original thought, but then I was watching, I think it was Alexandra Rosalind, who is a booktuber, and she's reading this book at the moment as well, and I'd already read the stories that I had before was quite excited she was talking about the book, and she likened it to Raymond Carver's stuff, and I was like, oh, I thought it had a really, original thought, but apparently it's quite well known that Claire Keegan is similar to Raymond Carver. Anyway. I would definitely recommend it, just to experience her writing style, and yeah, give yourself that immersion in her work. But I do think there's definitely some trigger warnings for this book, so I'd say look into those if you were interested in reading. If you watched my what's in my work bag video, you'll know that I also read this book recently, The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is another book that I've had a while and then finally got around to reading it. I read this as part of a book club with some friends of mine, and we're actually meeting up next weekend to like talk about it and stuff, so it'll be interesting to see what they thought of it. But it's about a character called Avery, who just receives a mysterious, strange letter to say that she's inherited some money from a man she's never heard of called Tobias Hawthorne. And when she goes to find out how much this is, she finds out that she inherited a hell of a lot more than she could bargain for. And it comes attached with a set of grandsons who want to find out why on earth she got the majority of this inheritance. But Tobias Hawthorne is a riddler and a gamer and a puzzler. And all of this is kind of just a big game. And I was really, really gripped throughout this. I read it fairly quickly, for me anyway, and it's got so many twists and turns and different clues that come into it that just keep you guessing and keep you piecing the puzzle together. So I would definitely say it's gripping. It's YA as well, so for it to do that, I think is quite good. I really enjoyed the journey of this book. I really did. I had a great time. I almost felt like girlish excitement at like just discovering everything that was going on, and I liked the characters. There was a bit of a romance trying to run through it, which felt a little bit clunky to me, and I think one problem that I ended up having with this is that I went through this thinking that you could read it as a standalone. I don't know why I had that in my head, but it's actually part of a series, and there are so many questions left unanswered at the end of this book. A great cliffhanger that makes you want to read the next one, but also some clues that have been given that it's like you can't quite itch that scratch that itch, whichever way around that goes, by just reading this first one. And I ultimately kind of came away from it feeling a bit stressed that I didn't know the full conclusion to some stuff that had been like a puzzling over, and it kind of makes the story seem a little bit strange when you don't get a full conclusion, in parts anyway. But you know, it's up to me to read the rest, isn't it? But I wasn't entirely banking on doing think so when I started, but I think I might have to just know what's going on. I loved the house that this is set in, Hawthorne Manor, I think it's called. Because Tobias is like a bit of a trickster. It's set almost like an escape room, so there is like fake doors and entrances behind fireplaces and all kinds of cool stuff like that. It makes it feel even more like risky and dangerous and confusing. I definitely think this is like one of those books that's a page turner to get you out of like a reading slump, or just in between a couple of more like serious novels or something. It was a really, really, really fun time. Really fun time. And then I also read this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book, Following the Moon, by James Norbury. And it's kind of like one of those illustrated books, so there's not like tons of text, but there's pictures. And I absolutely loved Big Panda Tiny Dragon by James Norbury, so I asked for this one for Christmas or my birthday, I can't remember. I think it was Christmas. And it's about a cute little puppy called Emea and a wolf who actually remains nameless. And Emea gets detached from her parents. She loses them, and the wolf takes it upon himself to protect her and to help her on her journey. But of course, in true James Norbury style, he is giving her lots of pearls of wisdom along the way. And there's sort of a theme running through it, because Emea, her only sort of loose plan to find her parents is to just follow the moon. But of course, following the moon is not all that logical, because the moon will move as you're walking towards it, and there's dusk and dawn. So really that's illogical, but it's all about how the journey is the most important thing, and also believing in your goal. And there's also a lot around having to change paths, and that being okay. But it does it in beautiful ways. It brings you gorgeous metaphors. I will say though, it's flipping heart-wrenching, this book. It's got some really, really sad bits that I was not prepared for at all. I think because I do feel quite an attachment to dogs, I actually struggled a little bit with it, with those parts. But I'm so glad that I read it, and I would read it again, just for all of its beautiful pearls of wisdoms. And Emea was very, very cute. There was actually, I bet I can't find it now, but there was something in this book that was said about creativity, and it's something that I've actually printed out on my Sprocket sticker printer, because it really, really rung true with me. Okay, I finally found it. But it's a bit of an aside from the storyline in a way, so I don't think it will be spoilers. It's just something that I really took a lot from, and it's all about creativity. And I stuck this in the front of my sketchbook to remind myself. So it says, You know somewhere inside you is a poem that you alone can write, a unique blend of what you love, what you fear, and all the things that only you have experienced. That is the poem to write, young one. But what if others don't like it? Perhaps no one will like it, Amaya, not even you, and that's okay. That is why we need to take our joy in the creation, not how it turns out. And when you write your poem, Amaya, take your time choosing a place to sit and a subject that inspires you. Enjoy searching for the right words, even if it takes all day. Relish the way the world changes around you as you create. The result is really beyond our control. If we are only concerned about how it turns out and what others might think, we have lost that which makes creation joyous. And I think that part about the journey being more important than the destination, and robbing yourself of the joy of creation if all you worry about is what something looks like at the end, just really rang true for me, quite simply with art. I sometimes get so hung up on like what will others think of it, or like what will I think of it, or like is this good enough? But ultimately that's just not what's important about creation. It's all about the joy of doing it. That's what it's really for in most cases. So, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful book. I do think I enjoyed... I don't know, I almost felt bad saying it. I do think I enjoyed Big Panda Danny Dragon a little more. Purely because this one made me so sad. But then it does uplift you again. But it does have some parts that have really stuck with me of just being really, really sad. So, I'm finally reading Fourth Wing. It feels so topical at the moment. Everyone's so excited about Onyx Storm, the third one, that was recently released, and I just want to know what all the hype is about. And it does sound so, so fun. So, as I say, I've started this, and it's all about Violet, who expected to be a scribe. So she expected to be surrounded by books and law, but instead she, for a number of reasons, ended up having to be a rider instead, which is a dragon rider in this realm. And so far, it's really, really gripping, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I really like the characters. I'm so intrigued to see what's going to happen. I love the writing style. I really enjoyed that it was feeding us world building in amongst the action. I think that was great. It just feels really natural, as opposed to like, right, now you've got to sit here and learn all about the world. Instead, it draws it in through like the characters' thoughts and the action of the book, which just feels really seamless. And yeah, it's really, really building out the world and the characters. It sounds like it's going to be an absolute storm coming Violet's way. I'm very excited. In fact, I'm going to probably get my Udi on. I've bent one of the pages. Probably get my Udi on, and I'm so lazy. It's because I didn't have a bookmark and I bent one of the pages. I'm going to get my Udi on and maybe get another cup of tea and read this to finish off my Sunday. So when this video is released tonight, you can think of me sat on the sofa reading Fourth Wing. guys suggest based on things you know I like. And when I go book shopping,